Hello everyone, welcome back. This is episode 2 of the Basics of Blacksmithing. So today, as I mentioned in my last video, I'm going to go over the physics of hammers and why it's important to know your stuff about the physics of hammers. Yeah, first things first. Hammer I use most often. This is a CrossPeen Hammer. Got a regular flat side on this side, very similar to my mini sledge. On this side I have a very specialized end. One of the things I really like about this though is that it gives me a physical advantage over the mini sledge. So I have this surface if I want the mini sledge, but if I don't want it and I want to move metal quickly, I use this. Now why does that work? Well, it works because it's not necessarily about the pounds with which you hit the metal that moves it, it's about the pounds per square inch. A needle can puncture skin pretty easy. A coin though, you would have definite trouble trying to do that with. And why is that? Well, if you stick a coin flat up against your arm like that, all of the weight is being dispersed over a pretty big space. Whereas with the needle, all of the weight of that needle is being pressed into a very teeny tiny space. So, despite the fact that both weigh about the same, one of them is utilizing its pounds per square inch, or its weight per square inch, or its weight per square unit of measurement, to hit a specific point and get through that point. Same deal with the hammer. If you are putting 3 pounds of force into an area this big, it's going to have much less of an effect than putting it into an area this big. So that's the first thing about hammers. And when you really get to know your hammers and you really get to get a good feel of it, you'll start realizing that, hey, this is actually going to give me a huge advantage. Which is why technically the BallPeen Hammer would be a better idea for me, if I had my beefier one with me. But I don't like the marks that the BallPeen Hammer leaves, and it's a little bit unpredictable. Because you also need to know the direction at which you are stretching the metal. With this, it's pretty predictable. If you hit it down like this, it's going to stretch the metal this way because you're creating this big crevice like that, and it's going to want to push the metal in these directions. Also, if you hit it with a nice even head, you're going to hit it and it's going to want to move out in all directions, which could have some unintended consequences. Another thing about the physics of hammers is it relates more just to blacksmithing in general, because this isn't really hammer specific anymore. But you're going to want a height advantage. So, imagine that for a second, my anvil was up here, and I was standing down here. I would be having to do this, and this doesn't make very much sense, because I'm only using this much extension to get to here, and I'm just going to wear myself out. Just doing one round of pounding on this thing is just not going to work out well, and also I would have a tough time actually seeing it. I have to go way above my head and just end it almost above my head. So, what am I going to do about that? What gives me the best advantage? Well, I don't want an anvil down by my feet because then I got to bend over and, hammer from, the hip essentially, because otherwise I won't be able to reach it. So you're going to want to have that anvil at a good decent height. Now this one is a little bit tall. Kind of misjudged it when I put it on the stand, but I have solutions for that. For instance, I could push something fairly stable and, something that gives me a couple inches more height that allows me to come down at a better angle. Something that centers the anvil more toward my center of gravity. I don't have to lean over too much, and I don't have to come up from up here. So it actually works out pretty well in the end as far as that's concerned. I have had a few headaches as far as what I use as a support down here, and well, in certain cases, when I make a huge mistake, things get a little bit dicey. Your body weight does have some effect on it. I'm a rather skinny dude, so I need all of the advantage I can get. My arm doesn't weigh a whole lot. It is pretty strong though, all things considered. But, I have to utilize my leverage. So if I come at it from over here, I'm using all of this space instead of just this space. I'm using probably a good foot, maybe even 2 feet more space than I would, let's say, if I were down here, my anvil was up here or something crazy like that. So here's another thing, and I am admittedly horrible at this because it's kind of fallen into this habit. So you have this big old long handle right here. this is much more efficient than this. Well, this is much more efficient than this. I don't know who hammers like this, but that's obviously not a good idea. This here, you're using this much, this power. I mean, you're moving this a whole lot more than this. When you have that leverage I was talking about, you can make this thing go a whole lot farther in a whole lot less time, giving a lot more speed, utilizing that poundage per square inch much better. Using the leverage in your arm, using the leverage in your hammer, and using the height advantage, all really good ideas. So, I would recommend probably seeking a little bit better material on this from a guy who probably knows what he's doing. But this is kind of the basics on sort of how it works as far as hammers and effectively using your hammer. Alright, so yeah, with that then, I just gotta say thank you for joining me. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.